I had not enough downforce in the back. The suspension compression settings were set way too hard, so that's why the car oversteered. I was pushing really hard the whole lap, and therefore the tires overheated, and that's why I had no grip. I think there was some car behind me that was leaking coolant, and that's why that section of the track was extra slippery. My foot slipped off the clutch, that's why my wheels blocked. Russian hackers hacked my ESP system. Those and many other excuses I could have used to explain to you what had happened, what was the reason behind me crashing the Apex GT86, but no, in reality I just simply fucked up, and there is nothing bad about admitting it. And before I get into details, let me explain you one thing, let me tell you one thing. I always personally think that whenever a driver gets behind the steering wheel of a certain car, it's always, no matter what, it's his responsibility to bring the car back home safely or bring the car from A to B safely. It's always his responsibility, because whenever, for example, whenever it's slippery, because it's wet, because it's raining, then it's your responsibility as a driver to adjust to those circumstances, to whatever possible circumstances. If there's too much traffic or if there is something with the car, then you need to adjust and drive within the safety limits. And I personally don't think that because it's me personally who drove and crashed the car, I should suddenly change my reasoning behind it and say like, yeah, but you know, I'm an experienced driver, so there was something with the car. No, it's always driver's responsibility. So in this case, it's also no different than that. If you want to hear more detailed explanation of what had actually happened, the evening before, the car has received Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires, which you could categorize under semi-slick tire. And for me, it's one of my most favorite tires, together with Pirelli Trofeo Rs. The grip is phenomenal. And before that, the car was sitting on the stock, I think, Primacy HP Conti Contact Plus, the stock tire, which is also fit on the Toyota Prius, and that's why the Toyota GT86 is infamous for, because it has those tires. It makes the car very fun to play with, but it makes the car also very unstable. Well, not unstable, I would say less grippy, and thereby with the low horsepower output that the GT86 comes stock with, it's easy to have a drift. But then again, if you want to drive competitive on a track, you'll not be competitive, but you're gonna have a lot of fun, because again, the car is very fun to play with. But let's get back to the point. I spent over 2,000 kilometers driving this car with those tires. I even entered the Dutch Time Attack Championship, the competition with it, and I realized, yeah, it's fun to drive, but I don't have enough grip to have fun with. So I always stayed well within the limits. I also spent many thousand kilometers driving previous GT86s with the same tires for the company I worked for in the past, and now suddenly the car had those Cup 2 tires, and the car did 3 laps before that on the day with the Cup 2, 1 with Robert, 2 with the customer, and after that I decided to hop in and have fun. And my god, I was amazed by the amount of grip that the car suddenly had. I just, whatever I did, I couldn't get the car sideways. Okay, apart from the second corner, because the tires were still cold. And for example, if you look at this fragment over here, when I'm driving in Brünchen, you can see that I'm not driving too fast. I still have a lot of track left, so I could have entered the corner a lot faster, but I was still used to the previous tires, where you have little grip and you need to have a lot of safety margin for the shit tires. So now I had a lot stickier tires, so I got more and more confident, and I would say overconfident as my lap was progressing. And the final fuck up, what happened is, I'll just be honest to you, I tried to show it off, because in a mini carousel, if you exited too early, you will jump out of it. And in 99% of the cases, including my case, you just spin out and, well, you lose control, you'll get fucked. And I thought, you know what, those tires are well grippy enough, the car is not powerful enough, let me just go a bit faster, mess up the line for amazing picture when the car has two-wheel motion. And get a dramatic effect. I did receive dramatic effect. Amazing. Well, let that just be a lesson to everyone, including me and also to you. Whenever you try to show off, don't ever try to do that on a Nürburgring. I always say, you can also hear that in all of my previous vlogs, whenever I enter the track, you can never ever impress anyone at the Nürburgring, but you can make everyone laugh. And this time I hope you had fun time, watch me crashing and explain you the stuff behind it. But seriously, I'm not gonna, like, again, there's just that, I messed up, that's the bottom line. But now a couple of extra things related to this crash. The fun thing is, I always wanted to make a video what happens when you crash, because a lot of people obviously ask me to explain what happens when you crash at the Nürburgring, especially since I'm involved with this car rental business, and it occurs, unfortunately, sometimes that the car gets slightly damaged, and what happens then. And I actually, a couple of weeks ago, I went to the Nürburgring management and I say, hey, I have an idea. I want to buy a shitbox and I want to crash on purpose and film what actually really happens, this whole procedure when a Vanguard truck comes and so on and so on. And they said, no fucking way we're gonna ever give you permission to film that, because, just because, well, it's better not to show like bad things. And now suddenly it happened by itself. And don't ever think that I decided to take out our brand new car that we just tuned, just wrapped, and decided to crash it. No. So, yeah, but it still gives me an opportunity to talk about those things. So, before I start, let me first of all say huge, many thanks to all of you, and literally all of you, because I haven't received a single, not a damn single comment saying like, oh, retard driver, or stupid, or this, well deserved, finally, crap of this, because in the past, I crashed before, okay? Well, on the track, I had one more, two more crash if you count my wheel falling off, but I didn't really crash. I stopped before the barrier when the wheel fell off. And then I had a crash in 2012 with my time attack Subaru Impreza, when I was young and stupid, and just stupid, not young anymore. I decided to go out on the track when it was even snowing. There was this wet snow, you know, when the temperature is just 0 and there's still snow falling out of the sky, but it's melting on the track. And I decided to go out on a set of semi-slicks in the snow. And what happened? The second corner I crashed. But no, I was young and stupid. I thought, ooh, I have all-wheel drive, Subaru Impreza, I can go full Colin McRae. No, this is just, I hope you can see it, low brain. The same thing that happened now with the carousel, low brain action. And back then, I did read a lot of hater comments like, this is what you deserve and this and that. But now, strangely enough, I'm very surprised. So, huge thank you for all of you who expressed their concern about my safety, about any person's safety who was in the car, because not many of you knew that it was actually me driving the car. And again, about the general car, because I can clearly see that many of you have actually become attached to the car after seeing it in all the vlogs. So thank you. And now let's get to the point where I explain what happens whenever someone, God may forbid, crashes at the Nürburgring. Let's start with the most discussed point of them all, the barriers or the guardrails. And like every other racetrack in the world, Nürburgring is equipped with a lot of them. And they are there actually to save you, because if they wouldn't be there, Nürburgring, the green hell, green because of all the trees, crashing into a tree may have a bit more dramatic and, well, costly effect than crashing into one of those barriers. So what happens when you crash into one of them? It is actually advised to stay at the crime scene or at the scene of the crash, call the emergency number and say, hey, I just crashed here and here. Then a marshal car would come over, inspect the damage, and after that you will go together to the office, file in the report, and you would be requested to pay for the damage. Yes, it is expensive to crash at the Nürburgring. My fairly small crash costed me, I don't know yet, because the bill will be sent to me, but in my case, they made an estimate because they know me and they're gonna send me the bill. But if you're a foreigner, you would be asked to pay the amount, on the same day, at the same time. And in my case, that small damage over there, that resulted in 60 meters of barrier to be replaced and 12 to be straightened. So in total, 28 meters. And all that together, including labor costs, would cost me between 1,800 and 2,000 euros. Whenever I get the bill, I will show it to you. And well, there is that, a warning. Huge myth busting action right now. There are a lot of stupid and rumors that make me quite angry, to be honest. That people say, oh, whenever someone crashes, they make you pay for it, and then they will not replace the barrier until it's completely broken. This is such a bullshit. Because, again, those barriers are there to save people's lives. If the barrier is damaged, it's not working properly anymore. It cannot absorb any other impact. And if that would happen, no racetrack in the world, including Nürburgring, would never risk such a thing to be busted because they didn't change the crash barrier. And to finalize the thing, to finalize this whole explanation, those 16 meters that I have paid for, 28 to be precise, but 16 to be replaced, I am able to pick them up from the company that is handling all those crash barriers. So I called them, well, actually Daniel called them and said, hey, we had this accident, could we pick them up? I said, yeah, sure, come over.
Hallo, Daniel Krisenauer. Ich hätte mal eine ganz spezielle Frage gerade. Und zwar, am Sonntag hatten wir mit einem Auto von uns einen kleinen Einschlag auf der Nordschleife. Und wir würden uns sehr freuen, wenn wir das Stück Leitplanke irgendwie kaufen könnten von Ihnen. Ist das möglich? Ja, genau das Stück, das wäre ein Traum. Alles klar, ich danke Ihnen vielmals. Bis dann, tschüss.
So
it sounded quite positive.
so we can pick it up or what?
Yeah, maybe we can pick it up. She's just, maybe she's just going into the container.
Did she say anything about the fee or?
Yeah, she said probably you have to pay
Extra.
trash fee.
But it's not gonna be like hundreds of euros.
No, I think it's 5 or 10 euro.
Thank you. Oh! Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
So, if you find it fun, just go to this company and pick up this place. So those barriers are actually getting replaced. So whoever gonna come up with this stupid bullshit, again, one more time. So whenever you hear someone saying that Nürburgring is only making money of them and they're not replacing the barriers and blah, 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 just tell them to shut the fuck up, okay? Now, it can occur that your car gets totaled or it will be damaged in such a way that it will be unable to move on its own. And in that case, there will be the world famous, or at least Nürburgring famous, Bongard truck, and you will become a member of a Bongard club. Extraction truck for which you also need to pay. With exception of some, or I would even say most track days, but on the public, Touristenfahren public days, Nürburgring, Nordschleife driving, you would pay between 150 and 200 euros. Those numbers always vary because it always depends where the truck is going to take you to, and then you would pay the amount of the traveled distance. So sometimes if it's a rental company would always ask the truck to bring you to their base, or if it's you can either ask them to bring you directly to the junkyard or to whatever, to the hotel, or and so on, and then the price will be calculated and you'll be charged accordingly. Finally, personal request and piece of advice: if you're gonna crash the front of your car but you can still drive on your own, but you're leaking coolant or even oil, do not try to drive back into the pits, because first of all, I've seen cases where people just fuck up their engines because they don't get any cooling or lubrication, and then they just bam, gone. So you'll be just, well, messing up your own car. And second of all, leaking all those lubricants is very dangerous for the other users of the track or the public road, if we may say so. And you will be, first of all, charged with the cleanup costs. And second of all, if a crash will occur with another car because you spilled coolant, police will come, file a report, and you will be charged with the cost incurred to the other vehicle. So again, just tip to stay on the place of the crash and handle it by the book. And most important thing, do not ever try to flee, like exit Nürburgring, just take off, because that's like a very, very bad crime, very severe crime, and you're gonna have a lot of trouble. I'm not gonna even try to explain. And finally, if you have crashed a rental car, whether it's Apex Nürburg car or any other rental company car, you will be charged with insurance excess. Every car and every rental company have their own levels of access, and it varies between a couple of thousand up to tens and even 100,000 euros. If you drive a Porsche GT3 RS, for example, then you would need to pay up to a certain amount of that, of that money. So that means if you sign that, for example, the GT86 of Apex, the insurance excess is 20,000 euros unless you take additional insurance. Then if the car is complete write-off and it costs with all the mods roughly 50,000 euros, you will be only still charged only 20,000 euros. But in my case, the damage is roughly 2,000 euros because it's only the bumper and only the exhaust. And exhaust is the most expensive and the most sad part because it was only there for a week. But yeah, so if you would be driving the car and if you had the same crash and you signed for 20,000 euros, you would be only charged with 2,000 euros. So that again is a very common misconception about rental cars, that if you sign for a high amount that you would need to pay for it if you just only have a few scratches on the bumper, which is stupid. This is not true. And finally, a small addition regarding driving your own car and crashing your own car with the Nürburgring. Some people say because it's a public road, the insurance will cover the incurred costs. Yes, in many cases it is true. But again, always make sure to read the terms and conditions of your insurance, because some insurance would cover even the barrier damage, but some not, although Nürburgring is a public road. So always make sure to read before you get a nasty surprise, before you think, oh, I'm a king of the road, I can crash and the insurance will pay for it, and in the end it's not. Because I know, for example, some English insurances, they have small letters, small terms and conditions saying you're covered everywhere except from one-way toll road in Germany. Well, there is only one-way toll road in Germany, that's the Nürburgring. So just a hint and reminder. That was pretty much it, and now let me tell you what is the aftermath of my particular crash. First of all, most importantly in every crash is that the person driving the car, in this case me, has suffered nothing. I only had a bit of like sore muscles on the front of my neck because I crashed into the back. But if I would have crashed in the front, the outcome might have been different, because then I could possibly stretch my spine or like the neck. So that's the most important part. I didn't become more ugly than I already am. And now let's have a look at the car. Okay, so those are the parts that, are damaged beyond replaceable. This is one of the most sad things after the exhaust, but this is the bash bar that is mounted on the car behind the bumper. And the problem with this, it got hit here. And this is actually the mounting hole for the tow hook. So only because of that, we cannot leave it like that or straighten. We have to replace the whole thing, because we obviously need a tow hook just in case if it ever gonna happen again. Then the bumper speaks for itself. One thing which makes me fairly happy is that the rear reverse light didn't get damaged, and that this is a fairly high bumper because it got hit here on a high part. If that would have been any other car where the bumpers are fairly low, that would have been a hit in a chassis, and then I would have a pretty bad time. Also, this is a facelift car, facelift model, and the pre-facelifted models had a bumper which consisted out of two parts, and this time it's one single part, so it's fairly inexpensive. And finally, my most sad moment is the exhaust that got, the tips got fucked, and also bent here, dented here as well, and yeah, 1,500 euros worth of exhaust. Kind of sad. But the most important thing is, again, that the chassis is completely straight. Nothing is bad to it. The only thing that exhaust has dented this mount over here, but RT Motorsport, our dear friends who are taking care of the build and the reparation, have fixed it already. Final thing, that thing over here, If I would have to make a guess, that's some kind of a crash sensor if you're ever gonna get rear-ended, and whatever happens then, I have no idea, but this is the only explanation that we have for this thing, and that obviously didn't go off, and also none of the airbags went off, the rims that we installed are still intact, the jersey suspension that is on the car is still in one piece. So I have seen many cases where cars get completely totaled. I have seen cases where a car would get smashed, well, slightly smacked, would have been a lot worse. So, for example, the taillights are still intact. Again, this rear reverse light is still intact. Everything is fine. It's not even worth to be disappointed about. It wasn't even a crash to be disappointed about. It was something like, hey, first time in 5 years that you're at the Nürburgring, wake the fuck up. Or wake the fuck up at the start of the season. Don't ever try to do that again. So I am very, 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 very happy with the outcome, that nothing is wrong with me and relatively nothing wrong with the car. It's easy fixable. So in the end, I hope that you, like me, have learned from it and will be extra careful on the Nürburgring or any other racetrack or on the road in general. And yeah, stay safe and see you guys at the Nürburgring. Bye.